What's up, guys? Back with some F122, another MyTeam race. This time it's Spain, and this time a 25% race, which, if you watch my last video, which was a 100% race, you'll know that I said that I'd kind of thought about doing some of these at 25% instead of 100. And the thinking behind that is basically just being able to show more of the race and not have it be an hour-long video or something like that. And I think I think I balanced that pretty well in this race, I would say. But I am interested in your opinions. I mean, I'd be interested to hear the people that have watched the 100% videos and the 25% videos. What do you prefer? What do you like about the editing style of this, kind of showing you more of the race versus what you like more of the 100? And I think I don't ever want to show every single second of every single race at 1x speed, just because every second of the race matters, but I think from a viewer perspective, it can sometimes be a bit dull, even if it's as simple as speeding up, going down a long straight or something like that. I just think maybe it's better from a viewership perspective. So, anyway, again, let me know what you think. I'll probably continue to try it out different ways. Maybe 25, maybe do some hundreds, maybe balance it with 50s. I don't know. We'll see, TBD. But you may have seen at one point there that I did finish my qualifying lap, finished in P1, which I think is reflective of the performance of the car, which I showed you as well. And I think it was Leclerc that was the only one that was really close to me. So overall, just really good qualifying session, got a good lap in. And I do wonder how much of that is kind of trying to calibrate the AI as well. Um, you'll see here in this race what I'm talking about, but it's a little tough to calibrate the AI just because I think there's a big difference in the every second on the track, right, versus the start, for example, because the AI gets a much better start than I do. I don't know if that's true of every single person, but the AI definitely gets a better start than I do, and they're also less prone to make mistakes. So it can be tough if me being a human, the balance probably is somewhere where my fastest lap is better than the AI's fastest lap, but you sprinkle into that the fact that I'm going to get a worse start and I'm able to make mistakes while the I don't want to say is unable to make mistakes, but seems a lot less likely to make mistakes as I am. So it's just a balancing act, and I'm constantly trying to figure that out and constantly tweaking the AI a little bit up or down just to sort of balance that out well. But like I said, I mean, this is a great example here. I get absolutely gapped at the start, and Russell, Hamilton, and Leclerc, that's okay, but Norris is on mediums, and this is not going to be good if I can't get past him almost immediately. I'm going to lose a ton of time here because I do think that one lap pace on the softs, I am competitive with those top guys and could be faster than those top guys. I really think that. Uh, Almost get cut off at the front there by Norris. He kind of swerved across me a little bit. I was able to keep it clean, but that was admittedly kind of scary. So I think if I'd gotten past him right there, that can really shape your race. But unfortunately, I just couldn't do it. So we're gonna try to pass him as soon as humanly possible. But the strategy here is going to be soft to mediums, and this is a 25% race. So the only real viable strategy is pretty much soft to mediums, without any sort of safety cars or anything. And there are some cars who don't do that. I can't remember what Norris does with his, but I know that Sainz, who makes some appearances in this race. I'm sure you'll see him. I think he's in eighth right now. Sainz in this race ends up going, I think, soft to hard, which is just a suicidal strategy. I think when everybody else is doing soft to mediums, which you can do in a 25% race. But unfortunately, first lap of the race, I get floor damage going over that curb, and that is not a good sign for the rest of the race. We fast forward a little bit, and I am able to catch up with Norris here. I think what I found is that in Sector 1 and Sector 2, I could gain a lot of time on him. In beginning of Sector 3 here, what you're seeing right now is really my best chance to pass him. But if I wasn't able to pass him there, it was going to be really tough to get by him because coming out of this last turn, you're seeing it right here. Norris is going to get a much better exit than I do, and it's just not even close. And that happens throughout the race. And that's a phenomenon that I've seen in previous races against the AI too. They just get a really great exit out of that last turn into the long pit straight, and I'm unable to do that for whatever reason. And again, that's just a quirk of racing against the AI. My strong preference would be to race against people every time I race, but it's just unfortunate that you can't really do that. I mean, you can go into ranks, but it's kind of tough because I can't practice the tracks. I'm not going to practice every track, right? And I can go into a ranked race and be passable, but for the most part, I'm going to get slapped around a little bit by those guys. I'm just not very good, to be frank. And it can be tough if you don't know all the breaking points when you're not using any assists, right? So it's tough. I don't know what the solution is here. Maybe the weekly events where I can kind of practice and figure out the breaking points and all that. In so maybe the weekly events in supplement, I guess, to league racing, which is usually every other week, just about. And you didn't see my recent league race. We had a race at Jeddah that I was really excited about, really looking forward to. Unfortunately, got DNF'd on lap 1, and it was a bit out of my control. So I would have loved to upload a really nice league racing video, but unfortunately couldn't do it. But anyway, back to this race. You see me there get a really good exit, and I'm able to sort of get almost next to Norris, and I've got the better grip with the softs going around the outside here. And Norris and I are just going neck and neck through all these corners, and I'm just trying really hard not to make contact with him, and he's doing the same. But I'm finally able to get in front of him and pull ahead a little bit. So I'm maybe 3/10 ahead going into the pit straight, and you see him catch up a little bit. It's down to something like 0.183 seconds, but I'm able to get in front of him, and ultimately am able to get fastest lap on lap 7. And Norris is dropping back significantly. I'd say that he was using quite a bit of battery to stay in front of me and then stay with me for a moment. But you see these other guys start to pit. Leclerc pits, Hamilton pits, and it's Russell in front of me and me in second. And the pit window is opening here, and these guys are trying to undercut me. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to try to pump in another fastest lap and just put as much speed as possible into this lap and just try to get to the point where I can come out ahead of some of those guys. But it seems like it's going to be unlikely because they already had a little bit of time over me. And Russell is the one who is actually closest to me, but is almost 3 seconds ahead of me at this point. So I think I'm really going to have my work cut out for me just to try to make this happen. But all I can really hope for is to get a good pit stop and then put a bunch of good laps in my second stint. And I think the good news is I haven't noticed any effects of the floor damage that I got on lap 1. Maybe it was affecting me and that was costing me lap time, but I thought for the most part that I'm driving pretty well up to this point. Obviously, I've gotten a fast lap, and I'm sure other drivers will try to take that from me, and maybe somebody like Lando Norris on the mediums and then maybe go into the softs would be able to take that from me. But my hope is that I can keep this fastest lap point and also get a good result. So you see me here dive into the pit lane. George Russell is as well. Unfortunately, I just didn't know where the pit entry was, and I sort of played myself and cost myself a lot of time there going into the pit entry. You see I have the broadcast pit experience option on, and so we get to watch the intervals here with everybody else, which is kind of cool. Norris obviously goes to the front. You're going to see Leclerc and Hamilton come up, and they get past me there as I come out of the pits. Looks like a 2.7 second stop, not great. I also waited too long to engage the pit limiter. So I think throughout that whole pit process, I cost myself a ton of time. I think that I took way too long going into pit entry. I had a pretty long stop at 2.7 seconds. I waited too long to engage the pit limiter. And the outcome here is that instead of being roughly 2.5 seconds behind Russell, which is what I was going into the pits, I come out and I'm almost 6 seconds behind Russell and Hamilton between us. So I think if I had done that better, I think I would have had a really good opportunity there to be a lot closer to these guys and maybe fight for the win. I don't know. We'll see how the race goes here, but as it currently stands, I've got my work cut out for me. I got 5 seconds to Hamilton, got 5.5 seconds to Russell. No question I've got more than that to Leclerc. Of course, remember, Lando Norris is in P1 at the moment. He will drop back when he pits. I was something like 6 or 7 seconds ahead of him when I pitted. And I think it's fair to say that I'll be faster on my mediums than he is on his hards at the moment. So I'm not too worried about Norris, but I am worried about Leclerc, Russell, and Hamilton. And I'm already making time up on these guys, but the reality is just that in a 25% race, I've only got 6 or 7 laps here to really make up the delta. And to be honest with you, I was driving like an absolute demon in this second stint. And I'm trying to show you that here. And look, I'm not saying that I'm driving like an esports driver, but for me, this was driving like a demon. I was pretty much on the limit of what I could do and stay on the track. I mean, I think in time trial maybe I could push it a little more and pump out some laps that are a little bit faster, but in terms of race pace, I think this was about the limit of what I can do. So I'm going to cycle through some of the laps here. And obviously, you saw me get another fast lap, but I'm going to cycle through some of the laps here and another fast lap, 122.0. But I'm just cycling through the beginning of these laps here so you can kind of see me making up this gap to Hamilton in front of me and Russell in front of him. Roughly 2.5 seconds going into lap 14. And I am finally getting into the distance of where I can kind of strike at these guys if I'm just able to get to the point that I needed to be. So a second and a half, if I could get into DRS range, that would be awesome. But the problem, of course, as I mentioned, is I'm not going to get as good of an exit out of the last corner as Hamilton will, and it's going to be tough to stay within range of him. And of course, if I make the slightest error, I'm also going to be on the back foot a little bit. So you see me not get into DRS range there. We, of course, are going to hit the battery. I'm using pretty much everything I have just to get within range of these guys. But as I said earlier about racing these I think I just had so much better grip in Sector 1 and Sector 2. And I don't know if that's a setup thing. I don't know if that's just an AI quirk. I don't know if that's a difficulty thing. But for whatever reason, I was really able to catch them quite a bit. And I think if I can't get within range of Hamilton, within DRS range, I should say, there's no way I'm going to catch these guys, right? I mean, I need to get within DRS range almost immediately and make up that time. And as it currently stands, I'm just not having much luck doing it. But I am still, to my earlier comment, driving like a bit of a demon, trying to get within range, but also trying to stay smart because I guarantee you that these guys aren't going to spin. And it's interesting because I don't think I've ever seen an AI spin. Maybe at the back of the pack I've seen that sort of thing happen, but the leaders to me don't ever seem to spin. I do think that I've seen that in some other YouTubers series, like Tim at Marduk. I think I've seen AI spin in his MyTeam series, but also he's on a much higher AI difficulty than I am. So I've often wondered if that makes a little bit of a contribution to it. Because I don't see the AI locking up and making huge errors, but it looks like I'm going to get within range of DRS range of Hamilton here. Go a little bit off track, but I do get the DRS. I hit the battery, and I bring it down to about 0.8. But we're going into the last lap here, and I'm starting to feel the tires fall off a little bit. Not a ton. I'm still able to drive, but it's just the slightest least amount of grip, or the slightly lesser amount of grip. I'm just having a lot of trouble here, and just a little bit out of sorts, a little wide there, and as I mentioned, they get a better exit. I do get to DRS, can't catch those guys, but I've got one lap left to do it. So I'm going to give it everything I have here. I'm not too worried about Perez behind me. I'm not too worried about Sainz behind me. They're pretty much out of range unless I make a colossal error here and bin it. All I have to do at this point is pump in a pretty solid lap, but I can be assured that the AI will be using their battery to the fullest to try to stay out in front of me. That's just AI behavior in my experience. They will absolutely save up some battery until the very end, and they'll hit it hard on the very last lap, and you don't have much of a chance. But you can see me just a little bit out of sorts, I would say, just kind of missing some of the not missing the braking points, but just not able to get the car rotated as much as I'd like. I think just as the tires are aging, we've also got lap traffic here in front of us, which I'm hoping will help me a little bit. Hopefully slow down Russell and Hamilton, but Albon gets out of the way pretty easily, gets out of my way. Thank you for that, Alex. And I was hoping it would slow up Russell and Hamilton a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be doing that. I kind of hit the curb. I go a little wide there and hit the sausage curb again, and at that point, there's just no hope. I'm going to finish the race about a second and a half behind Hamilton. So a solid P4, and if you watch closely here, I hit the back of Leclerc. Sorry about that. I couldn't control my car. It wasn't my fault, but a solid result, I would say. It's a bit disappointing again just because they the start that I had was obscenely bad. My best lap was 7 tenths, 8 tenths ahead of the closest AI. So maybe it's just a skill issue. I mean, it almost seems to indicate that the AI was a little too low if I could have a lap that much better. But also, I do have the best car on the grid at the moment, slightly better than the Red Bull and the Ferrari. So it was a good result. P4 is the best result I think that we've had thus far in this series. This being the third race of the year. We had Bahrain where we finished something like P5, P6 after getting damage. We had the most recent race where I DNF'd with the mechanical failure. And we have this race where I gave it my all, did have a little bit of damage, got a terrible start, wasted too much time in the pit lane. I think without some of those things, I should have gotten the win. You know, I've got the best car. I was starting first. Should have gotten the win. And I think probably the pit lane is where I lost most of the time because I ended up finishing something like 3.5 seconds behind Leclerc for the win. I think without some of the problems in the pit lane, I certainly could have gotten P2, no question. And a P1 was within grasp if I had just managed it all correctly. So we've got some things that hopefully we've learned we can take throughout the rest of the season. Again, just let me know what you thought about the 25% race versus the 100% race that you've seen in the last couple races. Just what you think about kind of the editing style and pace of this. I'm just trying to show more of the race, show a little bit more of the driving rather than just the highlight reel. So hopefully that's what came across here. And I hope you enjoyed it.